Hello and welcome. So, have you ever had your child or your teenager say something that sounds like, I feel like my brain is just blank? Something like they struggle to come up with fresh ideas to think about new things or creative things, sort of. Now, there are so many reasons why this could happen, but it is very likely that your teenager's phone or any other screens and devices that they have might be the culprit. In today's session, I want to talk to us about screen time addiction and how that is creating the death of creativity amongst young people. The average young person today, and this is statistics, right? The average young person is said to be spending between 7 and 9 hours on their screens every day. Let that sink in. That your child is possibly spending 7 to 9 hours daily on their screen. Pardon me, but unless that is a full-time job, then there's a problem. Because how many hours do you spend in your office? How many hours are you supposed to spend at school? And so if a young person or anybody for that matter is spending 7 hours a day, that's the low end, and as high as 9 hours daily on their screen, this is outside of schoolwork and all of that. There is a problem, a real big problem. But by the end of this video, I'm going to help us understand the dynamics of screen addiction, how it is crushing creativity, and then what you can do to fix it. There are a few problems that come up with the use of screens. Let's try and look at them together. Number one is what I call mindless consumption. Mindless consumption can come in the form of endless scrolling. You know how you pick up your phone and you want to check just one notification that entered there, and before you know it, you have blown 30 minutes, 1 hour scrolling through different other things. Of course, there are reels to watch, there are new videos to come up. That is mindless consumption. It also shows up in the form of, for young people, it comes in the form of gaming and again, something that I call streaming overload. All right, so they start watching something, they go from watching, they are liking something, they're just consuming content without necessarily creating anything for themselves. It conditions the brain to become passive instead of active. So your child's brain over time becomes a passive brain rather than an active brain. The other result is that the more you consume, the less likely it is that that young person is going to be creative. So for instance, instead of making music, a child that was otherwise talented to be a music maker is focused on consuming all manner of entertainment. Instead of making other different kinds of art, you are consuming and consuming and consuming. That time could have been spent writing and developing their writing skills. It could have also been spent developing their public speaking skills or some other kinds of abilities that they have. Rather, that individual is just a spectator at life. The second problem is also the problem of dopamine overload. The truth is, dopamine overload is equivalent to zero deep thinking. So your child is unable to think deeply. Dopamine is the feel good hormone, right? The feel good chemical, and so it is also proven that social media notifications, any notification at all, so those notifications, the new videos that you look up to, they kind of supply a dopamine hit to the brain, and this is bad for your child's creativity. It's bad because constant stimulation means that the child's brain never gets enough boredom, quote and unquote, enough boredom to be able to think, to be able to make unique connections, and those unique connections are foundations for creativity. I put some of the details of this in my book on overcoming smartphone addiction. Not overcoming smartphone addiction. So I have two books. There's a book titled Overcoming phone addiction. I have another book titled The Gift of Boredom, and so it's the gift of boredom I was referring to. In the gift of boredom, I was trying to help young people understand that boredom can become a very interesting foundation for exploring creativity and all the creative geniuses that reside inside of the young person. And there are studies that are bound to this effect, right? Studies show that high dopamine from excessive screen make it difficult, if not impossible, for deep focus. So if you have a young person that is struggling with concentration, if you have a young person that is struggling with distraction, on the other hand, so distraction and concentration, they are not able to focus, they are not able to create or think imaginatively. It is likely as a result of excess dopamine from screens. And when I started, I talked about phones. Screens could mean any kind of screen. There are phone screens, there are TV screens, there are gaming screens, and all manner of other things that we use to distract our mind from serious work. Okay, so that is the second problem, dopamine overload. I talked about consumption problem, the mindless consumption that young people are doing on the internet and on their screens and on different devices like that. The other problem is the issue of creativity block, right? Too much screen leads to less original thinking. So instead of generating ideas, instead of creating your own thoughts, instead of sitting down with yourself, spending time with yourself to develop your own thoughts, you just copy trends, you just pick things from here and there, and you just move on with life. Passive consumption of data, passive consumption of other people's content, and the result is that it starts to rewire the brain to prefer shortcuts. It starts to rewire the brain to prefer easy exits rather than really focusing on developing problem solving skills. And you're going to see the effect of that in things like academics performance. You're going to see the effects of that in areas where the child will need resilience and will actually need to bring their problem solving abilities to bear. That is going to be a problem. So for example, if you've ever noticed that after watching a lot of content, you as an individual, you feel drained instead of inspired. I was talking to a group of persons about this sometime, and I said, when you feel tired from work at the end of the day, you actually think that scrolling through social media is going to help you relax. But you will notice that after scrolling through for 30 minutes to 1 hour, you are more tired than you were when you picked up your phone to scroll through. So creativity block happens when a child or a young person is overly glued to their screen. And the question is, what can you do? So I'll offer you solutions on this session as well. How do you help a young person? How do you help a teenager break free from screen addiction and begin to reignite their creativity? I recommend in my book also digital detoxification, and it's a simple exercise. Details are in the Gift of Boredom book. It's a simple exercise of creating time in every 24 hours to stay away from entertainment content. All right. I have a whole big argument around the subject of entertainment, and I can't even get into it in this video. But creating time out of your day, at most once in a week, where you detox. But for teenagers and young people, I would recommend every day, where you detox from screens, where you spend time to learn, where you spend time to read, where you spend time to get out of the house and do physical activities, engage in outdoor non-screen hobbies. All right. You also try creating before consuming. So maybe during the holidays or when they have enough time, before you go on screen, it will be wise to ask yourself, what have you produced in that day before you start consuming. I, for instance, work on my systems. I work my work is digital, so I happen to be exposed to this as well. But I have a routine that I must read a few pages every morning before I get on the screen to start working. And at the end of the day, I must end my day with a non-screen activity. you want to incorporate that into your parenting activities or your parenting strategies. Okay, also think about creating screen free zones from your house. Should we be using screens when we're in the dining? Should we be using headphones when we're playing games and things like that? Also allocate specific time for boredom. And by the way, there's a 30-day creativity challenge that we have created for young people. It's coming up in the month of April. Helpful. I think that it will be very helpful for every young person who is trying to develop their creativity skills, who is trying to develop their problem solving skills, to find alternative ways to enjoy themselves outside of their phones, outside of their screens generally. Okay, so those are a few strategies that you can begin to use and begin to implement in your home to tackle the scourge of screen time, the scourge of screen addictions. Now that you know, right, that screens are hijacking your teenager's creativity. It's also good that you know that you can take back control with some of the things that we have said. But for further details on this, I've mentioned a number of books that you can also look out, and in those books exist a lot of details. Share with me in the comment section what ways you have been able to use, if you have, or what you plan to do to limit screen time for your young person, and how you intend to boost their creativity. Let's talk about it. And as usual, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel because more content are coming your way. Share with somebody who will find this helpful as well, and join the 30 days creativity challenge. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, keep living the best version of your life and keep thriving.